Alrighty. Board members, for the work session, the primary topic for today will be the work that we've been doing on the bell schedule for the 21-22 school year. The purpose of our work is that this plan has been discussed and debated for years. One of the first meetings I had when I came into the district back in January of 2019 was at Cleveland Elementary, and I kind of introduced myself and talked about things and what I hope to do coming into the district, and then I opened it up for questions, and one of the first questions I got was, what are we doing about the bell schedule and flipping the day? So right away I was introduced to this concept of this being something that was important to people and had been talked about a while. So one of the things that I said was that as we were looking at transportation and how things would need to be seriously readjusted as we moved into the full merger with the schools of study and moving kids from east to west, that was the time for us to look at it. So now is that time. We need to really make sure that we're balancing the academic needs of students with the logistics of transportation. Because of routes that are needed and the transportation that's happening at the high schools and middle schools, we are looking at those routes needing to merge for high school and middle school routes and not be run separately. So right before the pandemic, you as a board may recall in the February retreat we had last year that Tony and Jason and John had shared with you some of the thoughts of people regarding some options that had been floated around and what was important to people. And the need was to balance the various desires of the district, and the things that came through in that thought exchange and have been the core of this conversation is to shorten the elementary day for students and provide common collaboration time at the elementary level, flip the day so that the secondary starts later, maintain sixth grade band and orchestra, place middle school and high school on the same buses, having bus cost savings for a very minimal increase with more routes for the merger. So again, as we're looking at this, if we're combining middle school and high school routes, then that frees up the number of buses that we would need in order to account for moving people from east to west and in places where we haven't typically done transportation until now. Trying to figure out a way to better accommodate PACE and special needs student schedules, and the conversation has always kind of included this element about moving sixth grade to the middle school. So those are all the parameters that we had around, and when we met, we wanted to make sure that we remained student focused and kept in mind our district goals, remain focused on the future and coming to a solution rather than saying this is what it's always been or we haven't ever solved it, and we've just sort of pushed through that as a group. Assuming the best of intentions and everyone in the conversation realized that everybody may have to give a little bit, and our goal was to develop a well thought out and defensible schedule that we could all leave able to explain and commit to making work. And I just found it very interesting that I had been thinking about this quote, and Brad used it in the conversation about math adoption, of the whole notion of getting to consensus rather than a decision that everybody can live with. So as I explain what we've done and what we looked at and what we want to carry forward for input from the public and staff, not everybody's going to be happy. And so everybody had to give some in regard to what's happening here, but it really is, we feel, the best consensus for where we are. So in terms of our conversations, and when we talk about things in terms of professional learning communities, we talk about what's fixed and what's flexible. So in terms of the fixed pieces, Brandon and Scott and the Career Center are telling us that they can really start not much later than 8:30 in order to get in the time that they need instructionally for their programs, the clock hours that they need to have. We really wanted to figure out a way to reduce elementary bell time with students to allow for professional learning community collaboration. We wanted to be able to find a way to maintain band and orchestra in elementary athletics. You've seen the presentation of the work that's gone in to try to formalize and clean up the elementary athletic piece. The band and orchestra folks see that integral to what's happening, and the after-school activities that we've been working on with Honda and that group really want to ensure that that stuff all is able to happen. The rocks of 20-minute and 50-minute time in transportation. So when we're looking at the time between elementary schools and secondary schools, So elementary schools running their routes and then middle school and high school routes running, or vice versa. There really needs to be a solid 50 minutes in between those chunks to allow that to happen. And then when we're looking at middle school and high school students being on the same route, then we have to allow 20 minutes in between middle school and being dropped off or being picked up, because they're all on the same bus rather than separate buses. So, and then the other piece is that extra duty beginning after contract time. The flexible things were the exact start and stop time. You know, they could shift a little bit. So conceptually, it may shift a few minutes here or there. Teacher contracted start and stop times can shift around that 8-hour day. So that was a flexible piece. The placement of band and orchestra, if we could find a place for that to work. And then the walk zone schools, that and Roosevelt could look a little different since they were strictly walk zone schools. So this is our current schedule, going across the top of the line with the high school and the career center. And then what this would mean, and I'll explain the color coding and all of this in a moment, but if we kept our current start time with the high school and the career center and made the adjustments that have to happen because of what we're looking at for transportation, this is what this would look like. So can kind of ignore the first column, that's not as important, but what we would look at would be a drop time at the high school at around 7:05 for a bell time of 7:25, which is the current start time. If that's the case, then we would need 20 minutes to be able to have 20 minutes later for the start time here. So again, because we'll drop all the high school kids, then go drop off at the middle school. So that pushes this start time to 7:45. At the end of the day, again, to depart at 2:35, the high schools and career center to depart at 2:35. Again, need to push 20 minutes, allow 20 minutes for them to go by the middle schools and pick up the middle school students. That would mean their departure would be at 3:05. So the high school day would run from 7:25 to 2:35, 7:45 to 3:05 at the middle schools. And then if we were to keep the elementaries later, then that would mean in the morning, with the 50-minute delay, and what we're talking about here, our 50-minute delay here would be that elementaries would start at 9:15, and then 50 minutes later would be departing at 4:25 as we look at the end of the day. So we'd have a very late elementary start and a very late departure for elementary schools, keeping the current setup. So obviously for all of us, that then said, okay, what happens if we flip the day? If we have elementary students dropped off first, and then go from there. So conceptually, this is kind of where we move to. And we said, okay, what happens if we have a 7:30 elementary bell time, and then we work this, so you could see that we could be done at 7:30, and then in order for these things to finish up by 4 o'clock, we kind of work backward. So we have this as our beginning conversation piece of what that would look like. And then in the contractual time at the end of the day, at the elementary level, the teacher workday would end, allowing time for PLCs and grade level and team collaboration. So this was kind of where we started then as our proposed schedule with the days flipped. In the course of our conversations, we then came up with some different topics and different conversations about that. So one of the ideas that came up was, what if we did what some people call the elementary sandwich? So if we would look at this, what we would do is kind of have our original time at the start at the high school, and then that would delay things for 20 minutes to the middle school, and then by the time we would get to the elementary schools, we're starting after 9 o'clock, and then to put the elementaries in the middle and work back out, we'd be departing at 2:15, which leaves us with just a 5-hour day. Now, according to state mandate, you can have a 5-hour day minus lunch and recess. So if all we did was bring kids in and had no lunch and recess, we could make that 5-hour day work, but this obviously doesn't work. So then we went back and revisited kind of fleshed this out a little bit more and had conversations about the adjusted current time. Again, the late start here was of concern, and what would that mean for how late that gets to be in the day? And so then the flip day conversation, we return to that. So this represents kind of by building level what that means. So again, starting at 8:35-ish, they say that they can kind of make that work, and they go 20 minutes back to 8:15, and then they go back here to 7:30. We'd be able to have that work, and then we would depart here as we kind of had on the other chart. So then the question becomes, what do we do with band and orchestra, which is currently at the beginning of the day? So the conversations we had was, what if we did band and orchestra at the end of the day during 7th period? So buses would depart, we could work in band and orchestra at the middle schools during their last period. But then we were ending up with this issue of where band and orchestra kids are coming back this late and would be in competition with athletics, and we would have some real supervision issues there at the end of the day of being able to make that work. So it would either force students to have to make a choice between band and athletics, or we would have a really long period of supervision at the end of the day. We will have a period of supervision that's needed at the end of the day, because we will have the time from the time buses depart until athletics could begin once the teacher day ends. So there's a piece of that that we'd be looking at. So we were concerned about that as well. So this option that we had kind of started with and floated around just raised lots of concerns. And so the work of the team is that we sort of started with this piece, and then Brad and Mindy went out to building principals, had several conversations about what that could look like, what were their concerns, they brought those back. We as a team talked about those and processed those. We had Kyle in on conversations from the music perspective. We had Nina in on the conversations from the athletic perspective. So we would talk about it and then send people out to have conversations and then bring things back. And we worked that through 3 or 4 meetings before finally having a meeting where we pulled everybody together, asked any administrator that wanted to come, athletic folks that wanted to come, and band folks, band and music people that wanted to come as well, so that we could all be in the same room and have the conversation. What grew out of this was when we really started looking at the schedule, and this is where our proposal lies right now, is that when you lay the elementary, kind of an elementary schedule with the 2:10 departure and this out, it does match up well with 5th period at the middle school. And so what we would be able to do would be after lunch at the elementary school, then the 6th graders could board buses, go to the middle school, be engaged in band and orchestra during the block that's already 5th period at the middle school, then board the buses, come back, and would be arriving back at the school at the time buses would normally need to arrive for dismissal. So it works from a transportation standpoint. One of the things that John and Tony have talked about is that with all the routing and everything that's happening and all the changes that are being made, things are really tight, and routes and drivers are going to be at a premium at these times, at the beginning and the end of the day, obviously. So to actually be transporting these band and orchestra kids sort of in the middle of the day is, from a transportation standpoint, a very simple solution, because there'll be drivers available. So this would allow us to put that in there, and then the buses would depart. So if an athletic team is coached by someone who's not a certified staff member involved in PLCs, then those athletics could begin immediately after school. But if there are certified staff members who are still in contract and will be doing those team meetings, then there would be a period of some supervision that would be needed in this period here. And we've talked about what that could look like and how that could work. But with our partnerships that we've talked about in terms of some of the other activities that could happen, with some of the conversations we've had with 5-Star in terms of activities that could be there, this could be a study table for those athletes to be working on something. As they're waiting, we could be providing a snack. Those things would all be able to happen. So that's what that elementary day would look like, basically from 7:30 to 3:10 for students, built-in time for PLCs that would run until 3 o'clock when the teacher day would end. The middle schools then by virtue of their drop-off time at 8:15, would be looking at a time that would go from 8:15 to 3:20, and then we could roughly have the teacher day go from 7:50 to 3:50 or around there. And then the high school, and again, this is kind of the main driver for us to be as late as we possibly can because of that time that's the absolute maximum lateness for the Career Center. We would have that 8:35 bell time there with the teacher day there from 8:10 until about 4:10.
So when you speak of that, about the Career Center, is it to accommodate the other schools that come to us?
Not as much that, but they have to have so many hours of actual instruction. And so for them to fit.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is most of that Career Center has our students, and we're all right here now. So is that?
But it is a function of that and allowing the time in the middle of the day for the kids to transfer from other places getting here.
And cosmetology has to have so many hours.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
they're early and late.
Yeah.
It's a function of both people coming from other districts and the transportation and the chunk of time that's needed in the middle of the day, and then around that, how can they get in the sessions that they need?
And is Roosevelt, is it just like, Roosevelt is its own entity over
So
there?
So after we had fleshed this out, one of the concerns that was raised was what does this mean for schools that are all walk zones? So for Roosevelt and back, there would be the opportunity for them to potentially start later because all of those students would be walking to arrive there. So their day could start later. And then the way it would work for band and orchestra to fit in there. And so teachers there would actually begin at the same time and do their PLC time before school. And then the day would start a little later and end a little later for those two schools that are full walk zones. But that would be a way for them.
And there's just a slight change in the busing with high ability being there for the kids that have to get bused over
right.
there.
For the students that would get bused there for high ability, this helps accommodate that a little easier as well. But that was more of a secondary concern to just points that Dee raised about kids walking in the dark.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, I'm glad. I'm happy.
Well, I am so glad.
But Hawthorne.
My whole time, I was like, what would Sue say?
Hawthorne is not, Hawthorne is not a total walk zone?
No.
No. How many, they don't have as many walkers as that.
So the other schools that have walkers, my concern is, we have kindergartners out walking at, when it's dark out at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then parents are working at, when school is over. We're going to have more latchkey kids. We're going to have more kids wandering around. I understand the science behind the flip. I do. But I'm concerned about, the primary grades.
Our kids go to school in the dark almost all year here with our Eastern time zone. Even the way it is right now. So that part of it.
How long ago was it that was our elementary schedule though? I mean, we weren't far off from that, like. Yeah, who's the longest, who's the oldest one here?
We've never started that.
We've never started that early? Okay.
And as a comparison, I mean, we looked at districts around, and Middlebury starts at 7:25 with their elementaries.
But they probably don't have any walkers.
Maybe some, but yeah, I mean, they
Very
have fewer. The after-school piece, I mean, again, with the full array of programming that we're looking at many of our schools, the 21st Century Grant work that we're doing, I mean, there will be opportunities for kids to have options for after school in a wider array than we've done before.
You've got like Woodland would not have that many walkers. Berry Daily would have walkers. I mean, Pinewood and East would have a ton of walkers.
Hawthorne.
Well, Hawthorne, but I asked them, they don't have like a tremendous amount of walkers.
Mary Daly.
You see, yeah.
Can I just say thank you so much for working so hard to try to find this solution and thinking outside of the box. And it's something that I've advocated for since 1994 when my girls were in school and had done the research. And I think it's a high time that we do this, and it's a perfect time that we do this with the merging of the high schools. And I think finding these, schedules that can work. We have a lot of kids that benefit in after school, whether it's latchkey. I used to coach and had to have a late schedule every other week with the boys in basketball. So we would do 3:30 some weeks and 5:30 the next week. And I would always keep the kids on the off week for study tables, and they really benefited from that. And I believe that we can find real wins in even if kids are going to have a little gap time with teachers that need to fulfill their PLC requirements. But speaking of teachers, this has been something that our elementary teachers have been extremely concerned about for years, and burnout has been a problem, and we've lost a lot of elementary teachers to other districts because their schedules, were more easier on their souls, basically. So I'm all in favor. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. I'm so grateful. It makes me come to tears because I've wanted this for so long. So thank you for working so hard.
And, the conversations with the band and orchestra people, I mean, they like where it is currently and how that works, and I appreciate that, and we all understood that. But again, we're finding a way to maintain it, and they've adjusted their thinking a little bit on that, in that in order to not force students to maybe miss some specials during this afternoon time, they would take part of their band and orchestra students a couple days and part the other 2 days. So based on your instrument class, the woodwinds or brass, or they'll take students by instrument section and work with them. So they'd have a smaller group of students concentrating on that particular instrument at that time, and that would afford them the ability to develop them even more. So they would kind of do 2 days with a couple instrument sections, 2 days with the other instrument sections, and then 1 day where everybody would come. And the elementary principals have indicated that they could work the special schedule in those afternoons to do that. There also would be the ability to work in some project-based learning genius hour times or some other projects and things in the afternoon that could be standing there. So would provide sixth grade an opportunity to provide something a little bit different for kids. So when there's that desire that sixth graders can go, why aren't they in the middle school, or why don't they get that kind of experience? You could really get creative with some time in the afternoon to provide those sixth graders that kind of experience, especially as you get into second semester, as they get older and are ready to transition to middle school. Any other questions about that? Brad, Mindy, anything I missed in any of that? So just to kind of tell you, again, that the adjusted current schedule not allowing for PLC collaboration and doesn't really solve anything for us. So our consensus is around that flip day with this period. So in the next days coming up here, what I would like to do would be to provide a copy of that grid of what that would look like, what that means, a little explanation of video from me about that, and then put it out as a thought exchange to receive input from staff and from families to just say, what are your thoughts about this, and just provide us feedback in it, and then we would incorporate that into a recommendation that would come to you on May 11th. Questions or anything? Answer. Okay. That's all I have, other than if there are questions regarding anything in the packet.
Is anybody here that can speak on money?
I've got $10, what kind of money you wanna talk about?
Money.
I'm sorry.
My dad was here.
She is here? Where is she?
Well, she's probably in her office, but
Oh,
if you had a question, okay.
yes, please.
Yeah, I think if you just leave it.
I believe I'm probably.
What's gonna happen? Net file exchange, we can choose to understand. The bigger thing is, light that goes in the front. I mean, the vendors and the, common rooms that make.
Anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to add, what we've just, learned?
I have a question for calendar. So, we don't have snow days anymore, right? We just have all e-learning days. E-learning days are actual, like, these kids are going to be e-learning. So where is the staff? They're in the schools doing TLC and checking in on the kids for those e-learning days?
For the built-in ones on computers?
Yes. So all staff still has the opportunity to work?
They will work.
Yes, so all staff works.
Wait, the
You're
built-in
not
or
talking
the
about
snowy?
the built-in or the inclement weather day?
Okay, so, like, explain the two of them to me. Like,
Okay. On the proposed calendar, there are some built-in e-learning days.
right,
On those days, staff will report back.
okay.
On inclement weather days, we would just follow the same policy we do now.
So we would go to school on that day unless there was a snow day, then that becomes one of the days that we use.
It's just an e-learning day.
So in the morning, when I would make the call that the roads are too bad,
Right,
then we would not come to school, but we would do an e-learning day. So
Okay.
from home, staff members would put in their assignments and
Okay.
do those things, and students would work from home and staff would work from home.
okay. And so, right now, like, if we call a snow day,
We
there,
make it up by adding the day.
okay, we make it up by ending the day, but we wouldn't make up these days anymore.
Right. 'Cause
So,
they will be-
but then, okay, but then if we're not making up those days, so say like bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, et cetera, do they get paid for those days, or are they now gonna lose pay because we're not adding days onto the end of the year? And then how are we taking care of that for them if that's the, yes?
I think the plan would be, and I know this is what both Tony, Janae, and I would be advocating for, along with a number of other people that do. As you might recall, a number of years ago, we put in some academy days at the end of the school year, specifically so that those people did not lose income.
Okay,
So we could extend their work calendar, cover those days, so that they would continue to receive compensation for those days. Training, yeah.
okay,
And believe me, there are plenty of things that we can provide meaningful training on those days. Any number of things.
and they work a full day, that day then?
Yeah. So while there might be an adjustment of when they receive that compensation, they still receive the compensation.
What do you mean by that?
Their annual income won't go down.
So if we would have 2 snow days at the end of a week, they would lose the money out of that pay period, but there would be 2 days added at the end of the school year
Okay,
where they would work, and they would be getting.
Professional development, meaningful professional development, OSHA, lots of different things.
Okay. okay,
Overall, for understanding, it's pretty good.
It's very similar to what we're doing right now on Fridays.
okay,
You know, we've done lots of OSHA training, we've done lots of, avoidance of injury training, more broader than just OSHA,
okay.
et cetera, to cover those types of things.
Has that question come up to you guys, has arrived in the packet from a lot of employees? Worried about that or not?
I haven't heard from a lot of employees about that, but I will tell you, I have, it is something that is always a concern from my standpoint, from operations standpoint, in terms of bus drivers, bus helpers,
Okay.
paraprofessionals.
So when we approve that, it, like, they will know that they will have that option. I mean, we're not deciding that after, I mean, we
No,
already kind of
will
have that,
We'll
okay.
communicate that out and make
Okay,
sure.
good, good.
I think that's important. to get
Yes,
that message out.
absolutely, okay, good, okay, so that's my one question.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, oh, hey Troy.
Okay. So if we didn't have snow days, would we still do these additional Training days at the end of the year.
I would love to, because we have the need for it, but obviously then there's an additional expenditure above and beyond what we budgeted for. So I'd really be comfortable at that point in time, a financial question of, is that cost that we want to incur? At that point in time, we'd probably make it voluntary, but still compensable.
Just to give you a little idea about that, when we had the last court meeting, you all had asked us, I think, what the cost to have, come back for a day. In case we
But I
don't,
mean, you gotta think,
do a year, 3, 4 Memorial Day weekend. There are about 601 classified staff right now that would have to work that day, and, their salary and benefits for that one day would be close to $7,000 per day.
So now for the snow days, right now, my grandson, who is a kindergartner, only takes his iPad home on Thursday nights. So during the snow months, the winter months, are we gonna have to have them take it home every day, just in case there's a snow day, or, you know, how are we gonna work that?
Yeah, they'd have to have it with them.
They would have to have it with it quite a bit, and,
Right.
and there would be forecasts that we would really pay attention
Right.
to. That would
And I'm
be
thinking
the day you really need to take them home. But we also know there probably will be still some who use that, and so, we would do like other school districts are doing in regards to that, that we would not make the assignment do that very day, because there would be some students who necessarily did not have their, learning tools with them, and so we would give an extended amount of time for them to make those things.
Okay. Because we all live in northern Indiana, and we know how accurate the forecasts are.
Right. But just like you would plan your morning, like, I don't know, if I'm gonna get to go to the gym in the morning, because I'm gonna be shoveling, you would take your iPad home the night before. You like that whole demonstration?
I don't know, I don't shovel.
Ah, you should. Okay, and then language.
We're not hearing the responses very well. I'm not sure if it's just me. You know, so we can hear the board members and Dr. Tallheimer really well, but sometimes we can't hear the response super well. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that, okay?
We'll have to come up to the mic.
Yeah, we'll have them come up to the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for making us aware of that.
Any other questions about the packet or anything?
I have a question about the, policy 3422.2. Anyhow, in, Schedule A and Schedule B there.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the hourly rates actually go down. You probably explained this to me before, but I just want to make sure that I understand why they went down. I think that's what you're telling me.
So actually what you're looking at is, and that's why there's a strike through the Schedule A and Schedule B. Historically, for paraprofessionals, now today we don't have any paraprofessionals who work less than a full day. Historically, we did have two pay rates for paraprofessionals. One for people who work less than 4 hours and one for people who work more than 4 hours. So I think that's what you're seeing. And so you're still seeing the calculation of the increase for paraprofessionals from the beginning of the year to now. So that's not for the instructional paraprofessional schedule. There's really no change at this point in time for that one. Really, all of the changes that you're actually that would ask that you actually focus on is really the changes to Schedule C, which focuses on the exceptional paraprofessionals working within the exceptional learning department. Now, that doesn't mean working in this building. That means working across the district of exceptional learning paraprofessionals, because we're increasing their responsibilities. No problem.
Okay, and the language assistance program. Can't hear you. Language assistance program. That is benefit to.
2260 or two.
Yes, 2262.
Guess I'll come back.
That's your, yeah.
Yes, that's you again.
Yeah, this really is focused on the E&L, the students who do not have English as their first language.
Okay.
And it's to meet the federal and state mandates, providing usual
Okay.
instruction for that, that group.
Would you remind me again how many different languages we have in our school system?
35, 37.
I think 38, the last time I ran that for you.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
38, but 13 regular.
I think, unless you have other questions
I
about
thought
the content. We could tag team this.
Yeah, we'll do this together.
I would like to invite board members to breakfast.
What's on the menu?
I don't know what's on the menu.
But it's for Boys and Girls Club.
Oh.
April, yes, we're tag teaming this, April 29th.
It's Thursday morning at 7:30.
Where is that?
It's at the Northern Indiana, whatever. The RV. The RV. Exposition Center.
Exhibition Center.
Now, I will tell you, there will be an ask for money from Boys and Girls Club, but you're welcome to eat breakfast and not
Table captain.
You are the
give money, but of course, they would love for you to give money. But it gives you an opportunity.
There is no pressure because you just have those envelopes on the table and you are happy when people fill those out.
There's no ballot.
I am happy when people fill out the envelope. I am happy when they, well, I'm not as happy when they don't.
Just bring your checkbook or cash.
Or credit cards. They're very flexible.
Oh, yeah.
They take those every month automatically for you.
And can we take the entire board?
We can take the entire board because if necessary, I'll get another table. Because the tables have like me and 5 people, because we want to have appropriate distancing of people, but.
As opposed to what we're saying.
What Susan and I, fully vaccinated, are doing.
We're all.
You said 7:30 a.m.?
7:30 a.m.
I think it's like 7:30 to 8:30.
And it will be done in an hour.
Thursday, April 29th.
Are they gonna have any of the kids there at the tables with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you'd let Susan know whether you want to attend before you leave the building tonight, so I can tell the people at Boys and Girls Club, or they will hurt me.
Want to or will attend?
Can't wait to attend.
I'll be there.
All right. Here we go. At least we got to have breakfast with Rocky and nobody else. Good thing. Was it 29th?
Yes.
29th.
Thursday.
Thursday, 29th.
Troy, you're looking very tan over there.
Thank you.
Must have been a great vacation.
Was very sunny. I can make it.
I will be there.
Can I be at the other table other than where she's at?
No, no, I would like you to put him directly next to me
No.
at all times, everything.
Within 6 feet.
The preference is 3 feet. And if there's
I
any
have
other rules,
something
if there
else
is.
scheduled, so I need to just
I
verify.
can't handle that at
still,
7:30 in the morning.
gonna have
I've already been outside the
You
business,
can let me
I've
know.
probably mowed the lawn, and I'll be ready to go.
I'll be sleeping.
You should not wait.
When I was packing my bag, I found one of my grandsons had left me one of his zany joke books. So I have to, tell a couple teacher-student jokes. Why did you copy Larry's test? What gave me away? His name on your paper. Teacher, how can you do so many stupid things in one day? I get up early. Ta-da-da.
Okay, but
I have more.
into the desk at Eastwood. Wanted it to be forever his, and Barbara caught him, she was like, how did you know? And she's like, your name, Jake. Okay, we have a break.
Yep.
We have a break.
Fred.
sing without Ryan.
Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stacy, are you aware that you're leading us in the Elkhart Promise?
Nope. Oh.
Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, will graduate career, college ready, and life ready.
Thank you. So, there will be an opportunity for the public to speak at the end of the meeting on your seats. There are some white folders that have a thing that you need to fill out. If you don't have one, please see Mrs. Ott. Fill it out, your name, your relationship to the school system, your address, and the topic you want to speak on. Give it to Mrs. Ott. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Let's move on to the consent items.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion by the board?
I have a question for Valerie. Before the meeting, I asked Valerie to explain page 39 of our, Valerie, would you like to come to the podium?
Yeah, maybe I
The
will.
people outside are having a hard time hearing
Sure.
the audience unless they're up there.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So on page 13, Susan, pointed out a question in regards to some items that had, an indication of void next to them. And I did some research, collaborated with my colleagues virtually, and, have some insight. So those items were, tied to a docket of an incorrect date. And so they were voided to pull them to the 413 docket that they should be represented under. So they might be listed as void on that specific page, but they're re-represented later in the docket.
In the same
In the same
packet,
bundle package, yes,
and that's why it holds the same dollar amount that's been voided.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you for your answer to that question.
You're welcome.
It
I
was
appreciate my colleagues'
confusing
too.
for those of us who
Understandable, no, that's a great question, and we welcome those.
Never seen a void before, so yes, it was interesting.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, and one of the other pleasures I have is always talking about our, lovely gifts and generous community. And tonight we have about $40,000 worth, so I'm going to be quick in just giving some of the highlights. Ken Blazer of Old Iron Farms helped us out at our farm out there on Ash Road. Riverview Adult Care has donated a 2008 Dodge Grand Caravan, and the North American Forest Products has donated a tandem axle flatbed utility trailer. Those both will be used by the diesel and automotive technology classes. Julie Yoder has donated a Yamaha trumpet batch for our music department. Dave and Nancy Smith have donated $25,000 for the renovations to Rice Field and Northside Gym. Vaughn and Cindy Nichols donated $500 to the Elkhart High School Boys Track Program. Dave Carter and Associates have donated $1,000 to Elkhart High School's cheerleading program. Our dear Phyllis Tubbs has donated $870 to the athletic department for for the high school softball program. Mrs. Linda Homo made a donation of $3,000 to Elkhart High School track program, and Great Lakes Forest Products $1,000 in support of Elkhart High School West Theater. I thank the community, and their generosity is outstanding. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Kelly Mullen,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Susan Diver,
Aye.
Jason Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Ansel.
Aye.
part of the consent agreement today included our new Director of Human Resources, Dr. Denise Steger, and she is here with us this evening. Back here, she's here. And the process that we took, we had 11 individuals, both administrators, teachers, support staff, and we had quite a few applicants to look through. We had several who applied who didn't quite complete their application, and some who applied but didn't meet the minimum requirements as posted. But in the end, we actually reviewed thoroughly 12 different applicants, and we interviewed 6 of those 12. In the end, we had in our screening committee 100% unanimous decision in regards to our top 2 to send forward to Dr. Thalheimer and for his team to conduct the interviews and make a determination. It's always good when you're sending 2 people forward and you know that you're going to be in good hands regardless of which one that he chooses. And so it was an excellent process. Also on your personnel report today is the new principal for the alternative education program out at Bristol for the ED program, and that will be Eric Chandler, who is currently our principal at Hawthorne. Again, we have a similar process. There were 9 of us on that team. We sent 2 unanimous individuals by the screening committee to Dr. Thalheimer and his team then to make that final recommendation. Awesome.
Thank you.
Who's taking over at Hawthorne since?
Then we would have an opening that would be posted, and yeah. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in the executive session as well, yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Shepard.
Long time no Shepherd.
Long time no see. I'm here to bring back the calendar that we took a look at 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when we were last together. And at that time, you had requested a dollar amount of what it might cost if we were to have the support staff come in 1 extra day, meaning we could end the school year before Memorial Day for students and teachers, and then we would need 1 more day to pay support staff for the day of work required after a paid holiday. So I went to Maggie Lozano's office, and she told me, oh, this is something that has to be done by hand, so it's going to take me a little while, so I'll have it ready for you at 2 o'clock. And so I was thinking it's going to be a week. That afternoon, that's how great Maggie is, and sure enough, she had it before 2 o'clock. But the cost, if we were to go that route, would be $78,715.94 based on our current staff if we added that extra day. Of course, another option that the board would have would be if you wanted to waive your own policy on having to work a day after a paid holiday in order to get that paid holiday. And in talking to Mr. Thorne, that would take a couple board meetings on your part to take action on trying to waive the policy for that one time, for this one time. And of course, another option would be just to accept the proposed calendar as it is. So
And then see this, can't help you. Go ahead.
That's all I was trying to say, and just to accept the proposed calendar as presented to you.
Move approval?
Second.
Okay. So as we know, we see these calendars, we put them in place, and due to life, things change, and so does our calendar. So we can review those. So that thought process that we all had, or I believe people were in consensus with me, was that we could review that policy sometime this year, because we have over a year to change this calendar. And I hate to be the person
I
that,
thought I'd come up and spend time with my good friend, Dr. Shepard. Your bylaws provide you the authority to waive any provision of a policy. It just requires 2 meetings that it's happened at 2 consecutive meetings. So you could simply waive for the coming calendar year or the coming school year, the policy as it relates to the day after Memorial Day, that you wouldn't require employees to come back just to work that day in order to receive the holiday.
Okay.
So we really, a matter of very simple board action at 2 meetings.
Okay. And then my second question has to do with, something that was brought to me because I'm not smart enough, obviously, to figure all this out on my own. But you have 3 days at the beginning of the year for teacher prep.
Yes.
But you end the school grading period on December 22nd and bring those teachers for the high school and middle school, I would guess, that they come in with all brand new students and not a prep day. Is it not possible to make 1 day in January a prep day and 2 days in August a prep day?
That is possible. The message we received from teachers is they prefer to have those 3 days at the beginning of the year. That's more important to get the whole school year prepared at the very beginning, saying that for them, that sets the stage for the entire year, getting everything in place, and more difficult at the beginning of the year than the middle of the year, I guess. They didn't even argue in the middle of the year, they just talked about why they needed the 3 at the beginning. But, that was really, the feedback we received.
Okay, and I am just sharing the feedback that I have received, and with not knowing, I mean, my girlfriends, they all go to school long before, they're in there working in their classrooms before the 3 days to get paid.
Right.
I mean, and I think there are a majority of teachers that do that, so.
Yeah, I think that's true for any of us who've ever been.
So if this large group of people start coming in here and tell us that they think differently, I'm just saying.
As you know, this year's a perfect example. Y'all can change the calendar with 2 weeks of a board meeting if you propose to do that. Now, I will also say that people appreciate the fact. In fact, I remember a number of years ago, we'd approved 2 years in a row at the same time. People who appreciated knowing that far in advance when a holiday break was going to be, et cetera, so they planned trips that far in advance. I'm not encouraging you doing that, but my point is,
I know that had to be a long time ago, because I know it hasn't been done for 13 years. I don't believe.
During the work session, I asked the question, but I just want to ask it now that we're in the public meeting, just so that it's there.
Can everybody hear Kelly? Because I can barely hear her.
Oh, you can barely hear me? Oh, because I turned this away. We are making sure that support staff is covered with this calendar in the event that there are days that they would lose pay. So we will have an option for them to have themselves financially taken care of. So this calendar doesn't change things, since our snow days are different with e-learning.
does not change things in terms of that particular issue. What it would change is that they're not coming back to do their traditional work. For example, if you're using an e-learning day, the bus drivers are not coming back to drive buses on a day when students aren't present. We would be having the bus drivers engaged in other functions. I know that Tony Janesi has been doing that throughout the year with our bus drivers. I think every one of our support staff, we have lots of training, professional development opportunities that we can provide for them at the end of the school year. Of course, that'd be on a voluntary basis at that point in time. If an employee doesn't want to come back for that, that's fine, but there would be a
option is there.
Absolutely.
So we've created opportunities so that no matter what this calendar is, in the event that they choose to utilize those opportunities, we are not taking away from them, but it is up to them to follow through to make sure that that happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, but
And
it's there.
we have successfully done that a number of years, several years ago, when the state actually waived some instructional days because of blizzards that particular year. We actually scheduled, I believe, 3 days specifically for support staff to be able to make up that lost income.
Okay.
And that would be our intention if we need that in the coming calendar school year.
I'm just a little confused about, I thought this was just a question in the meeting, not a consensus to move forward with this. And so I tell me where I have not heard correctly that we as a board decided that this is what we should do. And I know that we still have to vote, but I'm just kind of curious. It feels like we've gone really far forward, and it was only, to me, I only heard it as a question.
Well, I'm
perhaps I used the wrong word.
I'm bringing it back up, Babette, because that was during the public work session. And this is now the board meeting in the event that there aren't some employees here. But the fact is, I'm just making sure that in the event that we change a calendar that would affect the pay scale of our support staff, they're aware that there are options for them to be able to be taken care of. Because we exist for a whole school system and all of our employees that work for us. So it's important to me that the support staff's voice is heard. So it's not that I'm trying to put something in there or adding. I'm just making sure that the discussion is public in the event that the support staff do not feel heard.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the last day of school, the day after Memorial Day. Does the board policy specifically say that they have to work the day after a holiday or the day before or day after? Because in private industry, most of them say you either have to work the day before or the day after.
Our policy actually says the day before and the day after.
And the day after.
Oh, yeah. Both. And so what we would be doing, if the board so chooses, and I'm certainly going to recommend that, would be coming with a request to waive that policy as to the day following Memorial Day in 2022. I would not be at this point in time be recommending that we just make that a practice moving forward, because then it creates some other dynamics in terms of people extending holidays beyond that. But we need them to be here. And certainly in this particular situation with the school year ending before Memorial Day, in my mind, there's even more of an incentive to do that because they're not coming back to serve needs students on that day.
Right.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Are we going to approve the calendar as it's read, or are we going to?
Roll call.
Well,
Okay,
we have to roll call.
I understand.
Are you ready? But we're still discussing.
We're still discussing it. So are we going to revisit this after we've approved it? Or do we just want to table it now, turn it down and look at it later?
I think there are people that need to have this calendar for other reasons in place as quickly as possible. I'd prefer not to table it, but I'm just one member.
Yeah, we come back and adjust these schedules for unusual events that we didn't anticipate. So we can alter this thing, in the near future after we do more research and decide that's a good way to go.
And that's never been our request. It's been brought to us.
Yeah, by the administration, yes, to their needs.
Doug, what is your recommendation for us as a board in terms of the ease of if we would make this change later? In your opinion, is it better to table it and get it changed then vote, or is it better for us to give our staff as much heads up and students and parents? What's your experience over your long past here?
Yeah, it has been a long time. My experience would be, and I think mostly from the standpoint that we need to start developing school year calendars for our employees now. In fact, we're actually behind schedule in terms of doing that. So I would recommend that we go ahead, or that you all go ahead and approve the calendar as submitted. There's certainly no reason why we could not bring back to the board in 2 weeks a recommendation to waive the policy related to that workday after Memorial Day. Could have that ready for the board to consider on first reading 2 weeks from now, and on second reading, first meeting in May.
I would agree, I think that's cleaner, get the calendar established, and then come back and look, it's really addressing a separate issue.
And it would be good to come back in 2 weeks, as soon as possible, because, people will be setting their vacation schedules as soon as they know the calendar's been approved, and one of those Fridays that the calendar says there's no school, Friday before spring break. And if we were to change that, they know we are having school that Friday, that would probably disrupt a lot of the time. Yeah.
Thank you.
The question I guess I would have there is if we need to recoup 2 days, which way are we leaning?
It would be the, April 1st and May 27th days, those 2 Fridays that are marked as no school days,
Okay.
those would become school days.
But wasn't the calendar lopsided anyway? Like 88, or what was the 2 numbers?
Yeah, but all of those days are still second semester, so it's not gonna change the difference between what's in the fall and what's in the spring.
Yes, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. From where I sit, because you know I get lots of contact from people.
Can you come up, because they can't hear you?
Sure.
Thank you.
From where I sit as ETA president, if you just approve the calendar as written, which I understand the intent and it is like 2 months behind schedule, people will take it as the gospel and they will be booking Allegiant flights tomorrow night. And so really you're thinking you want to end before Memorial Day, like in your heart, you think that's where you're going. It would be better to decide that tonight so that April 1st doesn't exist as a day off anymore, and May, whatever, doesn't exist. It'd be better to go for it and get it done than to wait 2 weeks, because people will literally make advanced plans, not understanding that it's going to, it appears from where I'm saying it's likely going to change.
Are we talking
So,
next year?
And I think that's the point, is
May of
we're
next
actually
year.
not, we're actually not changing the calendar by waiving that policy. The calendar still ends when the calendar ends, which is before Memorial Day. The only calendars that would have to change would be support staff calendars, which have yet to be completed.
no, this calendar ends June 2nd currently, so it'll confuse people.
And that's kind of the question I was getting at, was like, if we're thinking that we would take the 2 days from the 6th and 7th of January, that means different things to people than if we would take those 2 Fridays. So I think I'm of the opinion, put the calendar in place, and then we come back and clean up the policy afterwards.
That's my recommendation.
And if people are asking, what does that mean for pay, say, we're gonna come back over the next 2 meetings and clean up the policy so that the support staff isn't impacted by that. But I would agree with Carrie. I think that once the calendar goes out in whatever form it is, that's what people are gonna do and go by. And since we're so late anyway.
Remember my January word, angsty. I'm always looking out for those angsty moments. This would create angst, and I don't think we have to create angst. And while I'm monopolizing the microphone, a friendly amendment, the first day for students on August, whatever it is, we probably should color code it or highlight it. It's not obvious, which I normally wouldn't notice before. And then,
I would like the public to know that it wasn't us that brought a calendar to us 2 months late.
oh, no,
You just
no,
used
no,
2 months.
no, it's normally though.
This is
Oh,
when
absolutely
we were to vote tonight.
No, we're trying to get amazing work done here, so it's been,
I know, the
a
most
big
difficult
project.
year.
yeah, normally it's usually in February. And then the other thing I wanted to say while I'm up here,
I'm giving you grace.
Absolutely. The calendar committee consists of 2 elementary, 2 secondary teachers, plus an administrator in each of those realms, along with other people that have great input on the calendar. So for those individuals that I hear from that also were interested in having that teacher work day in January, for each of those folks that reaches forward, there are people with the opposite point of view. So when and if you hear any sort of calendar input like that, it's always great just to have them direct it if they're teachers
for me so that we can compile that. So next year when the calendar committee meets again, we can review that idea. Because that concept does come up, each year. And we kind of filter through everyone's input on that. And the committee as a whole recommended it be this way. So I just wanted to add that. I will sit down now. Thank you for letting me interject.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
Kelly Mullins? Aye.
Well-
Babette Bowling?
Well, are you voting?
Can you, I'm so sorry,
Yes, there's been no motion to amend anything, so,
That's,
As is.
as is.
okay, so we are voting on the calendar as is of this moment.
Yes.
Okay.
this is what I wanted to clarify. So if you approve this and we put this out, that's gonna create the situation that Carrie was just describing.
Okay, I have a suggestion. This is a draft. What happens if we approve a draft and keep it as a draft for 2 weeks? So that you guys can continue to do your whole bill.
Then the better bet is to do an amendment and table it
Well,
for 2 weeks then.
what I would suggest is you could make, a board member could make an amendment now to make the change so that the school year ends before Memorial Day. You got a second on that amendment, and then that amendment was approved, then the calendar that you would now be voting on would be ending before Memorial Day.
Right
And I
now,
bet you Dr. Shepherd could tell you exactly how to word that amendment, if I show him the calendar.
February 18th.
What are you guys saying down there?
I mean, ultimately, we're looking at moving February 18th and April 1st to days in session.
No,
Sorry, May 27th.
March 18th and May.
No, not March 18th. April 1st and May 27th.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there.
April 1st and May 27th to in session days.
Yeah.
In order to finish before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So that May 27th would then be the last day of school.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then we would have time to fix the policy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, if the, I know I'm gonna drive you guys nuts with the support staff thing, but sorry. If the support staff would have to have days, they would come back after that. to make that
Correct,
up
right.
By their own choice.
By their own
It would be
choice.
provided. Okay, just wanna make sure I'm
We
clear on
provide
that.
marvelous programming. We might even call upon you to provide a yoga class.
You know what, and I will spend the whole day with them. The Kelly Mullins e-learning, every day. Okay, so let me, okay, I just wanna make sure that I'm understanding this. We are contemplating.
Tony, we need you up front if you want to talk.
Yeah.
We're told they can't hear us.
That can't.
I just wanted to make one mention again. I believe there was 600 employees, 601 that are classified staff that are affected. So this all sounds great, but I'm gonna say this right now, and I trust you all, but if we don't fix this policy, there are 601 staff members that are gonna be on the short end of the stick.
And we never want that.
We're not gonna do that.
I know, but you know what, I mean, things can happen, I just wanna make sure that we understand that that's 2/3 of our classified staff, and that's what I've been fighting for the whole time. And Ms. Mullins, thank you very much, but we need to make sure we take care of them.
I'm
I know, I just wanna
the
make,
advocate.
And also just direct the administration to bring the proposal at the next meeting, and it will be done.
I just wanna make sure we remember those 600 people, 601.
We haven't forgotten.
So if you wanna do that, we need an amendment.
We're in the middle of a vote.
You are in the middle of a vote, but you can amend, you table,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the person's gotta take the minutes, you have to put on the I know.
Do we have a motion to amend?
I make the motion.
I second.
Well, what's the
Wait,
motion?
Yeah, we need to clarify what the motion is.
Yeah, we gotta know what we've been.
The amendment would be to make April first and May 27th in school day. And the school year would end on Friday, May 27th. 2023.
Okay, so we're gonna start again. We are going to make an amendment,
Got a motion to amend on the floor right now,
okay?
And a second.
and a second.
And we have the verbiage, and you caught the
No,
verbiage
we
of it.
don't have any verbiage.
Okay,
But I'm hearing
okay.
changing the last day and changing.
Not too sure if I repeat it one more time.
If you'd like to make the amendment to go along with this discussion, it would say the end of the 2021-2022 school year would be Friday, May 27th, with April 1st and May 27th being in school days.
April what?
First and May 27th being in school days.
And then we'll add to the agenda to change or
Direct
make
the
a,
administration
yeah,
to bring the proposal to waive the policy as to.
For that day specifically,
For that day
this is not a permanent
Is that part
change.
of the amendment?
No, so that's just direction to the administration.
So we would effectively take away the day, Friday,
That'd make it.
before spring break,
Yeah.
so people couldn't extend their spring break.
That's correct.
And then we'd be taking a 4-day weekend away in May.
That's correct.
So that we can be done.
We got all
in May.
summer then.
They're not getting
Right.
we're not taking away a 4-day weekend, they're
Okay.
having the summer
Do you
off.
need Daisy to say those words over again? She was one that did the amendment, or are you clear on that? So just so that it's,
I am not clear on that,
Okay.
but
okay, so do you wanna repeat that amendment?
Is there a full moon?
I know, I'm not gonna remember, repeat it one more
I
time.
wrote it.
Dr.
no, I have it, that here's what I have, and then you tell me if that's your amendment or not. That the last day of the 2021-2022 school year will be Friday, May 27th, eliminating April 1 and May 27th as non-school days as the calendar was presented to you.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
But now we need to vote on.
The amendment.
Amendment.
Did someone second the amendment?
Yes,
Yes.
do,
Yeah,
second is the
Seconded
amendment.
before it was.
Yes,
Okay, now we're back in the discussion about the amendment.
Yeah.
yes, now we're in the discussion about the amendment.
So I'm just making sure that this seems to be the least confusing and with the least angst for our teachers. Is that what we feel like we're doing in order to, that's why we're doing this?
Well, in doing this, we're presenting the calendar that you eventually want to get to.
Yep,
And we don't have to do it and then redo it again in a few weeks,
gotcha.
creating confusion for people. This will be the gospel that everybody will take forward, saying, all right, this is how the year's gonna go.
And
So
not just,
So- Sure.
not
So
just,
least confusing and least angst, in your
Right.
opinion?
We just
For all
have
staff.
to, we just have to make sure that we communicate when this goes out, that we will also be working on policy to address the pay issue for Memorial Day.
Gotcha.
That will
Okay.
happen over the course of the next 2 meetings.
So a
Okay,
revised
which-
calendar would go out showing those 2 days.
and this
When
protects,
this calendar goes out, the X's will come off of those 2 days, right?
Yeah.
and in the event of this amendment, we're protecting our 601 staff members that will be
Yeah.
taken care of.
I think I can safely say that the sense of the board is to take care of the 601 support staff members
Yes.
who would be losing a paid holiday if we don't make a revision,
Correct,
if we don't waive the policy.
right. So we are taking care of all staff,
Yeah.
okay? Okay,
Now, we'll require you to vote in favor of waiving that policy when we bring
Okay.
that to you on second reading.
okay.
And if you
Okay.
don't, I'm
So,
gonna make you lose time.
okay, well, he doesn't need to worry about it because together that's 2 Italians that'll make sure that it is taken care of, so, okay.
I have a question,
Yeah.
Carrie, are you okay with what we're doing here now?
Yes.
Okay, and
Mindy, okay.
Tony,
Then Tony,
there you
Are
are,
you
are you
okay?
okay?
Sarita, we're gonna throw you in,
Okay.
you okay?
So, you know, we're not trying to throw, you know, any employee group under the bus by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes.
I just want that to be
Well,
clear.
that's why I keep saying
Yeah.
all staff, all
Yeah.
staff. I mean, we make a decision for all staff.
I think we
Okay.
got it. I think we can move
Okay.
on.
All right, so now we've got the amendment, the discussion, the second, everybody's good, I am ready
Is
to go.
discussion on the amendment completed?
Yes, it is.
It is done, I'm ready.
Here we go again. Kelly Mullen.
Aye.
Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Susan Diver.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Now you vote on the calendar.
Okay.
Now we vote on the new revised calendar.
As amended.
So moved.
Oh, it's already been.
Oh.
We're back.
But that's good, we had two moves, I like that.
But I think we, you know, we're in discussion on the original thing right here, if we want to be.
We're now
We're not.
in discussion about the amended
Right.
calendar.
Right.
We are good.
Do we need any more discussion on this matter?
We do not, no, we do not.
I feel like
Groundhog
We're ready.
It was a technical point of clarification.
Okay, well, I'm clarifying, we don't need any more discussion.
Aye.
Take the vote.
Kelly Mullen.
Aye.
Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Susan Diver.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye,
Approved as amended.
thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody needs to leave the podium.
I-
have to stay because I haven't behaved apparently.
Well, thank you guys, and I think that this discussion was wonderful, I appreciate it. I'm no longer the president, but I'm going to stay over here for 10. As I am.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
the administration is requesting approval of a new board policy, 2260.02, which relates to the language assistance program for the school corporation. Brought this to you, during your March 23rd regular meeting, and we are seeking approval of it this evening.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on this matter?
Ready.
Kelly Mullen.
Aye.
Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Susan Diver.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Now, moving on to some new business. The first item under new business in terms of policy is a proposed revision to board policy 3422.01S. This is the food service employee compensation plan. We are proposing to add to class 5 the position of shift. Seeking your approval and asking you to waive second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Kelly Mullen.
Aye.
Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Sue Diver.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item in terms of new business is another proposed revision to the paraprofessional compensation plan, which is 3422.08S. There's actually a revised copy that came with your packet this evening. The essence of this policy change was outlined in a memo to the board, but it is to restructure the paraprofessional classifications for paraprofessionals working through the exceptional learners department, especially in the areas of special education, and does require that these folks will have the opportunity to gain additional training, which would be paid for by the school corporation, and actually would be taking place over Fridays over the next couple of months here, as we finish out the school year, where they would enhance their level of training in the areas of students within the emotional disability program, intense intervention, PACE, job coach, young adult program, the alternative program, our registered behavioral technician, and our paraprofessionals for the blind low vision program. The other change you will find is on the second page, and you'll see the changes highlighted in yellow. We had made reference to an administrative position that no longer exists, but, instead made it clear that that is a, certification required by the Instructional Leadership Department, and that is for the technology instructional paraprofessionals to receive a differential because of some additional training they might receive. We are seeking your approval of this policy change this evening and asking that you would waive second reading.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, just affects my wife's schedule, correct?
If your wife is, I honestly disagree, I don't know if your wife is, it would affect her schedule dependent upon what her assignment might be. If she is a mild intervention paraprofessional, it would not impact her compensation. If she is intense intervention, emotional,
She's just a regular.
if she's a general ed paraprofessional, no impact whatsoever.
Thank you.
On her.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Ott?
Kelly Mullen,
Aye.
Babette Bowen,
Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Stacy Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is a proposed resolution of the board that outlines how this board will expend the money that would come from the proceeds of the referendum that is currently on the ballot, and outlines in some level of detail. Obviously, some things will be subject to negotiation, but establishes some minimum floors in terms of how that money will be spent. And if I could briefly summarize, of the 15-some million dollars that will be generated annually beginning in 2022 for the referendum, $7,350,000 would be allocated towards the improvement and maintenance of employee compensation for school employees. What that would allow us to do is to minimally increase compensation for teachers by $3,000, minimally increase the hourly wage rate for all of our support staff employees by $1 an hour, and we would also be proposing to allocate $3 million of the annual proceeds from the referendum tax levy towards the reduction of employee out-of-pocket costs for health and dental insurance, which would result in minimal changes to the amount of money employees change or pay, reducing, for example, single coverage by $340 a year, coverage for employee and staff by $940, employee and children by $2,200, and family by at least $70. Those are all at least numbers. Obviously, that's something that would work through the process of our insurance committee, negotiations with the Teachers Association, but these are minimal floors. The last item is that we would be allocating $4.9 million towards maintenance of the 1 mile walk zone for transportation, safety and security improvements for students and employees, support transportation-related field trips for all students attending our community schools. Seeking your approval of this resolution this evening.
Second.
Do we have any board discussion?
Yeah, do we need to put a caveat in there that, what we're wanting to do and wanting the public to do, that it's only good for, quote unquote, 7 years?
It's only during, it's proceeds from this referendum. So if the referendum, when the referendum passes next month,
Right.
we will have to renew the referendum in 8 years.
Right.
In order to continue.
That's correct. Okay,
Yeah.
but, the problem we kind of set ourselves up for is to say, okay, well, we're here at this point, and people don't look 7 years into the future and say, okay, what happens if this doesn't get renewed? Then people might go backwards significantly. And that would be, I just want to set the expectation that, it's for, hey, it is for 7 years.
I think yes, what we have to recognize is if again, we're seeking renewal of a referendum in the out years,
Right.
we can't necessarily come in and reduce people's compensation. We have to actually reduce staffing levels.
Oh, okay. Right. Neither of which is good.
Neither of which is good.
Did you,
Yes.
did you, address the minimums for,
Yeah.
building professionals?
The minimums were based upon looking at their work year, the number of days they work, the number of hours that they work, come up with those numbers. So for example, custodians work a standard work year, 2,080 hours, hence the $1 an hour increase, $2,000. And the same thing would be true with, bus drivers and bus helpers. We look specifically at their work calendar, the number of hours they work each day to come up with it. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have Ms. Vondervellen?
My question is, doesn't say anything in here about administrators, food service, and you highlighted specific groups here, but there's no language in here that says that even those that are mentioned specifically are still included. So it kind of gives the perception that they've been taken out.
Well, you're right. It doesn't say anything about administrators. Administrators, there's no language in here that commits any increase for administrators other than the fact that the administrators would benefit from improvements to the health insurance contribution. Support staff is inclusive of food service, custodial services, paraprofessionals, secretaries. I just, as we drafted the resolution, didn't draft it to include every single solitary employee classification, because once you get to, for example, miscellaneous employees, you've got everybody in there from translators to radio station employees to technology employees, any number of things. So it's just trying to give some representative examples of employee classifications. But all employees in support staff groups would receive a minimum of $1 an hour increase.
The second to last sentence prior to the bulleted list does say a $1 per hour for all support staff employees.
Okay, so that's basically saying all classified.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about administrators? Then are administrators no longer a part of, a pay increase as part of the referendum, or is theirs just on the, health side, on the benefit side? Because it doesn't say anything in here about administrators. The perception is that the administrators have been taken out.
I mean, administrators are technically under a teacher contract, as their contract with us is under a regular teaching contract in most instances. Unless you're a classified administrator, then you're technically the support staff agreement. So
I'm just, there's confusion.
No, I think the intention is to say, here are the commitments that the district is making. The commitment we are making to our support staff is minimally $1 an hour increase. The commitment they were making to our teaching staff is a minimum increase of $3,000 for each one of our teachers. We're not making any commitment to administrators that administrators will receive anything in terms of referendum proceeds. It's more trying to lay out what are our hard and fast commitments for our employees.
Thank you.
Ms. Whitwell?
To go off of what Ann said, support staff, as Dr. T just said, is part of administration as well, it could be. I'm still a little concerned with the wording, because a lot of people don't understand that administrators are under teachers. So, because, like, for me, when I'm reading this, it's saying that administrators aren't getting included in that.
You're right. There is no commitment in this policy, in this referendum, to say that administrators will receive an increase as a result of the passage of the referendum.
So they can or they cannot, like, so you
They,
can
so I
decide
just
if
think,
they're on,
you asked a
that they
great question.
can or cannot.
They could receive an increase, whether it be paid out of the referendum proceeds. I mean, quite honestly, if you look at what we have committed to, we've expended almost all of the referendum proceeds on these employee groups and transportation. So I can't sit here and tell you there would never be a dime paid for administrators out of the referendum proceeds, but the commitment is to continually spend $3,000 minimally per year out of the proceeds of referendum to support teacher pay.
I'm just trying to be as transparent transparent.
I understand, and which is why we,
For the community.
which is why we propose this top resolution, is exactly that, to communicate very clearly how we're gonna spend money.
But it does not clear, it doesn't
If we have $15 million we're gonna get from the referendum, correct?
that you can spend on anybody in the district that works for the district.
According to this resolution, the board is saying, if they pass this resolution, that this is how they will spend the money. So if they decided a year from now to give nobody increases and give administrators increases, they would be violating what they are saying in this resolution.
So by this resolution, administrators are not getting increases.
Out of the referendum proceeds, administrators are not included in terms of getting increases.
But the administrators would benefit from the health insurance.
Well, they could also benefit because if they're not getting it from the referendum money, it frees up the other money to help pay for it.
If there is increased revenue coming into the district from any number of sources, additional state funding,
It's not saying it's not, they're not getting it, they're not getting it from the referendum money,
that's correct.
according to this resolution.
According to this resolution,
So you adopt a new resolution,
absolutely. Now, I would think if the board turned around in a year and a half from now and adopted a resolution that said, we're gonna give administrators big increases and nothing for staff, I have a suspicion that we would have some difficulties with people in this room with such a resolution being passed.
Ms. Tyrakowski?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Dot?
Kelly Mullen,
Aye.
Evan Bowling,
Sorry. Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Stacy Davis,
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
On another matter, we have a resolution, that we are seeking your approval of this evening, confirming a execution of an amendment to a lease and matters related thereto. This relates to the campus facility improvement project. And rather than have me mumble along and try and explain school financing and bonding, Jeff Quackenbush from Barnes and Thornburg is here to answer any questions you might have about this resolution, the next resolution. So Jeff is here to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thorne, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Thalheimer, Jeff Quackenbush, very nice to be with you this evening. I will keep this short because I know you've had a lot of things on your agenda, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the next two resolutions. The first resolution is confirming the amendment to the lease that would finance the capstone projects here at the high school campus. The total amount of that financing would not exceed $5,500,000 for a term not to exceed 20 years in repayment. This is a tax rate neutral financing because it's taking advantage of your other bonds that are paying off so that you can actually bring these on instead, and that will be a tax rate neutral financing for that project. I see on your agenda you have the approval of some of the projects related to that later on in the agenda. The current plan is once you approve those projects, based on the budget that you have for those, we would go out and sell those bonds in the middle of May and then close in the middle of June. That would then allow you time to be able to start doing those improvements right away. The second resolution is the appropriations resolution for the proceeds. Just like you have appropriations in your budget that have to be approved every time before you make an expenditure, you have to have an appropriation for all bond proceeds. That is not included in the normal budget process. So the state law has put this additional appropriation process in place where we publish a notice. We did that right after your last meeting. That has to be in place for 30 days. We then have this resolution and you adopt it, and then that puts in place the appropriation to be able to spend the money that you receive for bond proceeds together with interest earnings on those bond proceeds. That's why we're approving a financing not to exceed $5,500,000, but we're approving appropriation not to exceed $5,575,000 because you may earn some interest on that. Not that you'll earn $75,000, but you'll earn something, and so we just want to keep that up above the amount that we think you'll have at that point. In addition, this meeting has been advertised as a public hearing, so what you should do is, after we present these two resolutions, if you have any questions and you would adopt a motion and a second on those, you should ask for any public comment. After the public comment is concluded, you can then take action on those two resolutions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on either the resolutions or any other information that I provide.
So are we still receiving very favorable rates for these?
You are, yes, sir. Interest rates did in February and March move up a little bit as the economy started to improve significantly. What we have seen, however, is that tax exempt rates have actually come back down a little bit because of the introduction of the Biden infrastructure bill that has some increase in corporate tax rates and also some possible increase in tax rates for people above a certain income level. So we're seeing some people already go out there, some companies already go out there and try to hedge their positions relative to those tax rates. And so we actually saw municipal rates come down about 25 basis points. Having said that, you're still in an interest rate environment for 20-year bonds of between 0.75 and 2.5%. It's very inexpensive money.
Okay.
Returns to about 20 years. That's correct. We actually believe, based on current interest rates, that will go out for no longer than 10 years. But we just want to keep that as an option in case market conditions change dramatically, and we want to make sure that it stays tax neutral. But under current market conditions, we would actually go out with a 10-year financing at this point. And that would still leave you capacity to come back in future years to address other facility needs at other buildings through financing without any tax rate increase.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. At this time, do we have any discussion? Is there any discussion from the public? Any discussion from the board? Mrs. Ott?
Kelly Muller. Aye. Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Sue Divers.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
I need to vote on the second resolution.
I need a motion and a second before I can vote on it.
Remind everybody that we needed that.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on this one? Any discussion from the public?
Kelly Mullen.
Aye.
Babette Bowling.
Aye.
Troy Scott.
Aye.
Doug Weaver.
Aye.
Sue Divers.
Aye.
Stacy Davis.
Aye.
Rocky Enfield.
Aye.
I told you that the Rockenbush would do a better job.
You know what? That was quite interesting, so thank you. Thank you. Have a safe drive home.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Good evening. Tonight, the business office would like to present you with a recommendation for award for the Elkhart High School Master Campus Plan. On April 2nd, bids were received for this project, and at this time, the business office recommends award the contract in the amount enumerated in your packet to Niblock Excavating of Bristol, Indiana, as the lowest and best, most responsive, and most responsible bidder. We also recommend, as part of the contract award of the alternates that are also listed. And to let you know, this project came in under budget. I have to tell you, a little surprisingly, it came in under budget, but we're very, very pleased. Whenever we can take a base bid and alternates, and hopefully with your approval, we can do that. We are extremely pleased. So at this time, I ask for your
Move approval?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm glad you're fixing those big old holes over there in Elkhart Career Center parking lot.
every lot.
But we got some real problems.
I'd like to, congratulate the administration. Administration on over the last, 8 years. In my way of counting, this becomes the 18th major project that this school corporation has done in 8 years. And so, kudos to you leading that charge, all the way on, contracts and just a phenomenal, awesome job. And this place is second to none in my estimation. Thank you.
They have a great team.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Allen?
Kelly Mullen,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
Aye.
Roy Scott,
Aye.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Casey Davis,
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gee, I wonder who this is.
I know, did you just give me that? I'm like, I know who this is. It starts with an L.
It starts with an L.
No, her subject.
Oh, okay. Ms. Mullet,
Thank you, I think monopolized the podium twice tonight, but as promised,
but only for 3 minutes.
okay, but as promised, every other week I will be up here. The L topic is legislative. I want to give you a legislative update. It's not about lollipops or anything else tonight. As Dr. Thalheimer let everyone know through several different avenues, House Bill 1005 was a big concern to public schools across the state because of the voucher eligibility expansion and the creation of education savings accounts. Unfortunately, that's been embedded in House Bill 1001, which is the budget bill on the House side. It's still extremely problematic and of high concern, but I wanted to let you know some slightly good news and ask for your help. The Senate, on the 8th of April, unveiled their proposed state budget for the next 2 years, and it's much more public school friendly. Although it's not awesome, it's extremely better for our needs. It rejects the House's proposed cuts to the CTE program. Remember, that was one of the factors we were concerned about. The Senate has completely eliminated that if we get more of the Senate language in the final budget bill. And then they do have the education savings account as part of their budget bill, but they're limiting that to a $3 million funding cap, where the House side allows them to go up to $19 million in expenditures. So $3 million versus $19 million, obviously, if we have to be stuck with that, $3 million would be the more public school friendly way to go. Same thing, they have a cap on eligibility for families to either use the voucher or participate in the ESA program. They said a family of 4 can make no more than $110,000. Our friends on the House side have that at $145,000 family of 4 income eligibility, which is an interesting view on who needs to use taxpayer dollars, in my opinion. Also on the Senate side, they're limiting ESA programs to special education students only, and that it can only be used for services rather than also being able to be used for families to purchase goods, whatever that can mean. It can mean a whole lot of things. There's also complexity funding improvements proposed from our Senate side friends, which obviously is a big factor for Elkhart Community Schools and many of our neighbors. So there is a blessing there for school corporations that have higher EOL populations or students requiring special ed services. So anything you could do to kind of help push more of the Senate language into the House budget bill would be great. Senator Ryan Mishler is the chair on the Senate side. He is well known or well familiar with Elkhart Community Schools. I was hoping I talked to him frequently. He's aware of our issues and he's out of Bremen. So if you were going to contact the senator directly impacting that, he would be the person to talk to. There's going to be a lot of negotiation between both the House and Senate sides between now and about 10 days from now. And so they're going to have to kind of duke that out in conference committee to make the final bill. But also, don't forget their House is Friday. I don't know who's attending, but that would be also a good time to put some more bugs in the ears of Senator Rogers, Senator Dorio, Representative Miller, who might have some impact on the House side. And then, of course, Representative Westcott. Don't want to forget him and anyone else who might be there. So I just want to give you that legislative update. The end is near. They're supposed to be wrapping up April 22nd, which will be here before we know it, 9 days from now. They like to do things at the stroke of midnight when we're trying to sleep. So if you keep an eye on that and your ears to the ground and contact Senator Mishler, I would appreciate it. And I'm sure lots of people besides myself would appreciate you. I know you'd appreciate it because you are also advocates for public education. So thank you for letting me be at the microphone multiple times tonight.
Don't
It's
get
good
used
to
to
see
it.
you. I'll be back for an encore on April 27th. You just never know.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
I'm your biggest fan.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for doing my job.
Do you have any other public input? Dr. Tallheimer?
I have nothing.
The board?